The Singapore Tourism Board recently announced that operators must receive a mandatory CruiseSafe certification before sailing out of Singapore. The program is jointly developed by STB and global classification body DNV-GL. It sets out stringent hygiene and safety measures that operators must comply with. This includes infection control before boarding, throughout the journey, and after disembarkation. Cruises to nowhere are allowed to set sail from next Friday. Now, for more on this, we have Dr. Shahrin Osman, Regional Head of Maritime Advisory at DNV-GL. Dr. Shahrin, firstly, what were the various considerations when developing these guidelines with STB?
I think, first of all, we need to see and apply what has been successful on the land-based side, and then looking at it from the cruise side, right? So I think on that aspect, STB has incorporated the various hygiene measures, such as safe distance, wearing of face masks, and the limit of the group size for the social gathering. And these measures were then, very prescriptive and detailed, and it has to be strictly, observed by the cruise passengers. So I think the standards of what we see on land, I think more of it, we would expect, on board. But also we have incorporated the latest international best practice for the cruise industry, and that is where we incorporated the key element of DNV-GL's, infection prevention and control program, which is also known as CIPM. So by combining, what has really been effective on the ground locally here with what is the international best practice for cruise, I think we have come out, with quite a stringent guideline.
Now, I believe the cruise industry was also consulted on this, and I'm just wondering what were some of the key challenges that were highlighted, and how did you balance that with the eventual standards that were set? Indeed,
STB, I must say, have done an excellent job in engaging the cruise industry, as well as not just the, directly with the cruise line, but also the related stakeholders such as MPA and MOH. I guess one of the key challenges will always, has to derive something that is practical, but yet a robust approach to ensure that everyone is safe, safety as the utmost priority. So I think on that aspect, I think STB also has been doing, for example, tabletop exercise involving all the stakeholders, and then involving the cruise lines, the various government agencies, the terminal operator, to go through, what is the whole journey for the passenger. And through all of this discussion, involving, what I said, all the relevant stakeholders, that STB and DNV-GL experts, have derived, this cruise standard that takes into consideration, like what I said, what can be applied and is successfully on land, on board, but a lot more than, have been incorporated when we look at things needs to be managed and monitored on board the ship.
You sound very confident about the thoroughness of these guidelines. Do you foresee any difficulties in the policing of them?
I think this is something also then that in the program that we have, in addition to, that the whole audit process, looking at a very holistic approach, that we don't just simply look at the guidelines and checklists. We go much beyond that. We look at the entire management system, and we look at how the whole process has been effectively implemented, and there's a continuous process. And in fact, when we do this, what we call it pilot sailing, there will always be inspectors on board, doing that, what we call it a recurring inspection for every sailing. So, like I said, I think these are some of the best practice that we see on land that we have been, as a country, manage, this community transmission, and some of those best practices are also applied as part of what you call the policing regime.
And perhaps you can elaborate a little bit more with, inspectors on board and all the safe distancing measures. How will they be enforced on the cruises?
I think for example, what you expect is, things has been happening on land. For example, having those markers, right, for people, to have those safe distance in the gym, that the equipment could not be so close together. That it needs to be, for example, 3 meters apart. And there's a lot of, program looking at cleaning and sanitization, right? So these are some of the things that, the inspectors, will go their rounds. We have developed a very thorough checklist to see then that, some of these activities are being monitored, and then we review them, and then we'll give the feedback to ensure, like what I said earlier about continuous improvement program, that this is not something that's static, that we look at ensuring there's no gaps in the overall process.
Well, that's really good to know. Thank you so much, Dr. Shahrin Osman there from DNV-GL.